And welcome back, everybody. It's been a long time, and we have a new name. Welcome to the Podcats. You could say we've matured, gotten rid of Puckett. Now we're rolling with welcome to the Podcats. Moving forward, we took an extensive break, but now we're back, and we're getting ready to talk some defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers hockey. I am Jay Gibson, joined alongside my friend and co-host Alex Krutchik. And Alex, my gosh, it's been such a long time, but I am so glad we're back at it, talking a bit about basically the halfway point of the season. We're getting here, and before you know it, we'll have the Four Nations face-off in February, but more importantly, down the line, the playoffs, where the Florida Panthers will hopefully look to defend their title.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun second half. It was a fun first half, super eventful. I can't believe we're only 40-ish games into the year because it feels like we've already had a season's worth of storylines to talk about, and now we've got a whole second half to go as they gear up for the real thing.
Yeah. Before we go any further, you might see it scrolling down the ticker here. Obviously, you all know the fires out in Los Angeles right now. It's some pretty devastating stuff all around. That whole bit of SoCal is getting affected by these fires. If you do want to support the LAFD Foundation in their fight against these fires, you can visit the site down there, supportlafd.org for more information. Just keep that in mind as the days go on. Getting back now to Florida Panthers hockey, Alex. They're coming off a win over Utah, 4-1. They have a 25-15-2 overall record, placed second place in the Atlantic Division, only behind Toronto, I believe. Alex, this is a pretty good position Florida's in. You could even say even better than where they were last season. They still look like they have the eye of the tiger as they obviously want to defend their title. And all things considered, they've stayed relatively healthy. They are looking comfortable against some of the best opponents in hockey. And there's not a lot that Florida has necessarily done wrong up to this point in the season.
Yeah, it's been a pretty solid first half. I wouldn't say that they're as good as they were last year at this point. I think that they've braved a tough schedule. I think they've braved coming off of a second straight short off season. And then, of course, the injuries. They haven't had a whole lot of significant injuries, but, they lose Barkov for a couple games earlier in the season. Yeah. They lose Tkachuk for a couple games here and there. Earlier in the season, Nico Mikkola just missed about 2 weeks, and then he came back a couple nights ago. Yeah. So nothing too crazy, but it just seems like they haven't been at full strength for multiple games in a row often, but at the same time, like, who is totally healthy at this point in the season or at any point in the season? So based on that, I think they've done a pretty good job putting themselves in a good position. Second place in the Atlantic. It's nice to know that they can kind of be on autopilot. Not that they're on autopilot, but that, like, we can be on autopilot where we know, like, okay, they're going to make it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of seeding at this point.
There would need to be as the Boston announcers once said, a Hindenburg-level disaster if Florida were to somehow miss the playoffs. And obviously the realistic guy tells you that's probably not going to happen the way this team is moving along. And you mentioned it, Alex, that schedule. Oof. I mean, the whole month of December, you took on playoff caliber opponent after playoff caliber opponent, and such as the case was back on Monday of this week, losing a tough one to Colorado on the road. You're then taking on Boston, who has been in kind of a free fall. I mentioned injuries. Funnily enough, I should mention Aaron Ekblad has missed practice today, and will be considered a game time decision on Saturday against Boston. This is according to Jordan McPherson of the Miami Herald, obviously a great source. We don't exactly know what's wrong with Eki, but for the most part, yeah, this team has stayed relatively healthy, which is great to see. That I think that's a big reason why they won the Stanley Cup last season, is that when they got to the postseason, the team was just about 100% good to go. So for game in and game out. So let's move on to some of the highlights of the season so far for this team. It's of course got to be Sam Reinhart at the top. 23 goals, 47 total points, leading the team everywhere. Alexander Barkov continues to be the monster on defense and leads the team with assists and with 25 total. That's why he's a captain. And then, of course, you have Sergei Bobrovsky doing a very solid job in net, as he looks to once again prove why he'll be the starter come the postseason time. But even then, I think you even have a reliable guy in Spencer Knight, who's turned out to be a pretty solid backup, especially for these back-to-backs, getting a game in and overall putting some positive results out there. Alex, I'll turn it to you. It's easy to say the big names like Kachuk, Barkov, and Reinhardt are obviously the biggest stars so far for this team. But if you take away those three specifically, who are some of the guys that you're most happy to have performed as well as they have this season?
I'll give you a couple of names. Gustav
Okay.
Forsling, of course,
Yes.
again, has been a tremendous anchor on the blue line. I really like new guy Jesper Boquist, who we'll talk about all the new guys later. But yeah, Jesper Boquist has been moving up and down, second line, third line, fourth line, whatever you need him to be. Head coach Paul Maurice told us that during the preseason that he has the play style that kind of works on almost every line. And he's pretty good defensively as well. He's had a very good offensive season, of course. He's got 9 goals right now, which is one shy of his career high. And he got that career high in 56 games. He's at 39 games right now, and he's already 1 goal shy of that. Had 2 goals against Utah a couple nights ago. I really like what I'm seeing from him. Also, I'm not a huge shot percentage guy.
Yeah.
But for whatever it is worth, he's got a 22% shot percentage this year, which is by far the highest of his career. So I really like what I've seen from him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's crazy that Florida, they had to suffer from that championship tax this offseason, and losing a lot of guys who have gone all around the league. Stolars as the backup, just to name one that comes to mind. Lomberg as well. But they've done a pretty good job piecing together what they can with what they've been able to get in the offseason. You mentioned it, Boquist, and a lot of these other guys have done really solid jobs. Talk a bit more about the newcomers, because I know that we're going to see a lot more of them come postseason time, maybe. How overall have you seen these newcomers mesh in with the veterans? And you mentioned Boquist, but who else has really shocked you with how they've been able to come into this squad and just perform solidly?
Yeah, I'm not really shocked at any of them. I guess if anything, I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly a guy like AJ Greer comes along and immediately takes over the Ryan Lomberg role, where he's just such a personality. He's just everywhere on the ice. When there's a scrum, he's always in the middle of it. It feels like number 10 is always getting pulled out of a scrum whenever there's one happening. He's an identity player. Tomas Nosek, we had to wait a little while for him to come in. He missed the first month with an injury, but once he came in, he's been pretty good. Makes good passes in the defensive zone to get the puck out into the neutral zone. He's a big shot blocker. He's a very good defensive fourth liner. Actually, I have a stat for you. So he doesn't play a lot of minutes, obviously, as a fourth liner. So I looked at this as a per 60 stat. Per 60 minutes, he's at 4.03 blocks per 60 minutes, which is the second highest on the team, right behind Nico Mikkola, which we will also talk about him soon, because he was very impactful against Utah in his return from injury. Nosek has been he's been very good. He's been exactly what you are supposed to be as a fourth line center. And then who else? Adam Boquist has been pretty good. I really like the pairing of him and Nate Schmidt. It seems like they like putting those two guys together when Balinskis isn't in there with Schmidt. Schmidt and Balinskis, according to Money Puck, they're allowing 1.56 goals per 60 when they play together, which is the best on the team. I was going to say highest on the team. It's the lowest on the team in a good way. That Schmidt-Boquist pairing, Adam Boquist, not Jesper Boquist. They got both the brothers, Adam Boquist and Nate Schmidt. I feel like I've been pretty solid fifth and sixth defensemen.
Circling back here a bit, talk a bit about the most impressive stretch of the season for Florida. I know they had that very long winning streak back in late October to early November. There was one specific game that I remember as being one of my favorite games of the season. It was, ironically, the fourth game. Again, at Boston, you don't have Barkov, you don't have Kachuk, but the depth of this team shines, and they get a hard-earned 4-3 win over Boston. That's kind of dropped in amazement a little bit because we've seen what's gone wrong with Boston this season. So there's that. But what would you say has been the best stretch this season where Florida has showcased that they don't have a Stanley Cup hangover, that they're willing and ready to get this cup again? I look towards that that 2-game international series match in, where was it? I believe it was Helsinki, I want to say, somewhere around that region over in Europe. Those 2 wins against Dallas, extremely impressive. And then you have late November, early December, where they win 6 of their 7. A lot of great moments, even especially late in December. You beat Edmonton, Minnesota, St. Louis, Tampa. That was a great stretch. But what say you, Alex?
Yeah, that global series was actually the one that I was going to pick on. It was in Tampere. I believe I'm getting that correct. It's the hometown of Alexander Barkov, which was very cool. I thought that was great because I think that the Dallas Stars are a very good team.
Yeah.
And they were able to play them twice on consecutive days, and they performed pretty well. Dallas is 3rd in their division. I don't know if they're necessarily cup contenders the way that people are saying the Oilers were at the beginning of the season, but the Stars do always make noise in the playoffs, at least the last few years they have. So to see them perform against those guys in a totally different continent, it was also part of, I believe it was a 5-game win streak. They beat all the New York teams. They went to the Rangers, the Islanders, the Sabres, and they took care of business there. And they were pretty easy wins. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. Then they come back after the long break, and sometimes when you come back from a long break, you wonder, okay, are they going to need to get their feet back under them? 6-2 against Nashville, 4-3 against Philly at home. I would say that was the most impressive stretch if we're talking about like a long stretch. They've had more impressive games, kind of like the Boston one that you mentioned before. But that was the longest stretch of games where I thought, okay, this is great because some of these teams aren't the best, but they are taking care of business against those lesser teams. And then when they do go against playoff contenders like Dallas and like what I thought New York was at the time, the Rangers, they play really well.
Mm-hmm. That a good example of that, they had lost. They were in the middle of that fierce road trip early December. They had lost to Calgary and Vancouver. Didn't even score a goal in both of those games. They respond the way you would think a champion would respond, by putting on their best show against one of the best teams in the NHL, which also happened to be the team they just beat in the Stanley Cup in Edmonton, and drop 6 goals on them. And then you drop another 6 goals against Minnesota a couple days after. And that was the start of a 4-game winning streak. So this is definitely not a squad playing like they have, that championship fatigue that some teams will have after they win a chip. Where, I mean, that's the reason you really don't see hockey teams go back to back that often. But that's what Florida's trying to do.
Yeah. No, they definitely had stretches like that. They had New Jersey come in and beat them twice in a row. They went to Chicago the next week and lost 3-1. They had moments where it really didn't look good. Was it the end of October? No, not the end of October. The beginning of December. The beginning of December, where they lose to Pittsburgh. Sorry, I'm talking about the wrong dates. They go on the West Coast. They look very bad against Vancouver and Calgary, 2 teams that they really should have looked a lot better against.
They should have.
They've had a couple of hangover lulls here and there, but they never spiral. Like they haven't gone on a whole lot of long losing streaks. It's more like they'll lose a couple of games that they shouldn't have, then they'll win another game where they don't look their best, but they still win it. Mm-hmm. But they've been fine.
Yeah. Touring Panthers social media, especially these last few games, starting with the loss to Carolina, a lot of people were questioning Florida's offense, their inability to get to score goals and all the sorts of things. The Panthers came out, they won a close one against Pittsburgh in the shootout, and then those conversations started to spiral a little bit after that loss to Colorado. But again, they rebounded. They put up 4 against Utah in an otherwise pretty flawless game from the Panthers, all things considered. So I think one of the biggest storylines surrounding this Florida Panthers team, as far as why they're doing so good, has to be the otherworldly ability for them to score shorthanded goals. Alex, let me verify how many they have at this very moment, but I know they're leading the NHL by a pretty wide margin, and they're on pace to break a franchise record. And it's not, and like we mentioned at the top, it's the halfway point of the season, and they're this close to scoring or to breaking an all-time record when it comes to shorthanded goals in a franchise season. Is that a good thing? Is that a good thing that they're getting all these shorthanded goals? Because on one hand, yeah, you're scoring. Getting those 2 shorthanded goals on that 1 penalty kill against Tampa is something I might not ever forget. It was that cool. But on the other hand, that means you are getting kind of penalized a lot, which, I mean, I think Florida does have a good penalty kill, but still.
Yeah, well, Paul Maurice teams get penalized a lot. It's just the
That's
style
always
of
the
play.
case, yeah.
And you'll take it as long as you kill off those penalties, and they do. So I've really got no problem with it. You know, do I think once in a while they will commit stupid penalties at the wrong time? Yes, but I'm okay with the amount of penalties being taken. Just sometimes they're not taken at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just going back, I want to close a loop real quick, just because I totally lost my sense of days and time.
Yeah.
It was that stretch towards the end of November when they lost 4 in a row, and it was against a struggling Colorado team, a terrible Chicago team, Winnipeg, and Washington, who actually is turning out to be a pretty good team.
Mm-hmm.
But no, going back to the shorthanded stuff, they are fantastic. Sam Reinhart has 4 of those shorthanded goals. He had 5 of them last year.
Mm-hmm.
They've just got a lot of guys that play equally well on defense and on offense. Like, I'll be the first to admit, like, I didn't realize how good on defense Sam Reinhart was. When I thought of your prototypical scorer who can also play elite defense, I thought, okay, it's just Alexander Barkov and everyone else just kind of plays okay on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sam Reinhart can win the Selke. Like, I think that he's an extraordinarily good defensive forward.
By the way, okay, so Florida has 10 shorthanded goals at this very moment. The franchise record is 12. It was set in 1997, and they also got 12 in 2021, funnily enough. So, I mean, and again, we haven't even reached the 4 nations face-off, which, side note, I am really excited to see. I think this is going to be a really cool mini tournament that's I don't know specifically if it's going to like replace the All-Star game. Maybe they'll cycle year after year. They'll do the All-Star game, then the 4 nations. But I do like this idea, and there are a lot of Panthers that are going to be in it. So that's really cool. But I feel confident they're going to break that franchise record, by the way, by the time all is said and done. So the free agency period, I think, ends in early March the 7th, March the 9th, somewhere around that time. We saw what Florida did last season near the deadline when they got Vladimir Tarasenko and how his experience sort of played a part in their Stanley Cup run. Do you see them pulling something like that again? First of all, do you see them moving players? I mean, there's been a lot of talk that if you were going to move a player, a lot of people on social media have pointed to Benny, have pointed to Sam Benny. Either send him somewhere or give him that extension. Either way, he might be a name to talk about in free agency. And who are you going for to fill a gap that Florida might need?
Yeah, I heard those rumors too. I think that would be really interesting, and I don't have any insight on that particular player, but I have heard the possibility that he could be traded, but again, not from any great inside sources. Just, I've heard rumblings that it is something that would make a little bit of sense. I hope they don't. I think he's an identity player. I think he's a fantastic two-center, second-line center. I think that he shines in the playoffs, and that's really when you need him for.
Yeah.
if they do try to acquire someone, I think that it should be depth defense. I think that their scoring will actually be fine. I think that if anything, it's just that they're tired and that they might be a little bit more injured than the injury report will lead you to believe. It's been insinuated by Paul Maurice over the last couple weeks that like guys are banged up, which again, I'm going to allude to something that I said earlier in the podcast. What teams aren't a little banged up right now? But the Panthers are banged up and only had 2 months of an offseason this year and last year. So I think the scoring, I think the forwards are fine. I think they need depth defense. I think Ekblad and Forsling are great. I think Mikkola is great. I think that the rest of the defense is fine. I think they can definitely improve. Over the next week or so, I'm going to start looking at specific players that might be on the move. But that's the group that I would think the Panthers would want to improve on if they do feel like they need something.
We now know that it doesn't hurt to grab somebody new before the deadline just to see how he meshes well with the rest of the squad. They took a chance with that with Tarasenko, and I'd say it worked out pretty damn well for them, all things considered. I personally thought Lomberg was an identity player for this Panthers squad. He was the guy they'd call up when you needed to get into a scrap. Seeing him in a Calgary sweater, it's strange, It's like, whoa, it's like Jazz in a Yankees jersey. It doesn't feel quite right to me yet. But that was in case Kevin was somehow listening to this. And if that's the case, shout out Kevin, how you doing? But yeah, Jazz in a Yankees jersey to me feels like Lomberg in a Canucks sweater in a Calgary sweater. It's weird, but okay. Regardless of that, there are a few more things. Don't want to get too crazy on this episode. We are coming back from a long break, and there are some funny storylines to get to.
Do you want to talk about the Marlins adjacent thing that is happening next year?
Yes, the Winter Classic. How about that, Alex? Hang on, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can pull up the trailer they made for it. It's on their socials. I never thought I would see the day.
While you do that, I'll give a couple of facts and figures for you. It's the southernmost Winter Classic and the southernmost outdoor NHL game. The last one was the Los Angeles Kings hosted the Anaheim Ducks at Dodger Stadium 10 years ago. And now it's going to be the Panthers hosting the New York Rangers at Lone Depot Park in Little Havana. I think it's going to be awesome. Apparently they're planning on having the roof open, of course. Mm-hmm. Of course, because they have the roof, they can close it if they need to. I don't know how cold they're able to make it in there. That might be something that I ask when Marlins season gets underway. I would be curious to know, like, if they do have to close the roof, can they make it like 40 degrees in there? 50
like,
degrees
how
in there?
Powerful is that AC at that joint? I mean, it's a relatively new stadium, But here's the trailer they did. It's very funny.
And that's why the Panthers will never have an outdoor game.
Maybe when iguanas fly.
All right, everyone, let's take a look at that hour-by-hour forecast. And wow, temperatures are dropping so quickly out there. I've never seen anything like this before.
There's ice in paradise. The Winter Classic is coming to South Florida.
Interesting. So I'll be honest, Alex, I thought pitting the Panthers against the Lightning in a Winter Classic would have been a slam dunk kind of ordeal, but obviously I think the Lightning are hosting Boston in the Stadium Series over at the Raymond James Stadium, home of the Buccaneers. So, okay. But I think that's really cool. And you know what? I think Florida has deserved it. They've proven themselves since 2023 as one of the top teams in hockey just overall. You could even say name brand with how much success they've had with a lot of their star players, with the fact that they pride themselves on being a destination that everyone wants to go to, not just to visit, but to actually play hockey with the Florida Panthers, with that culture that Bill Zito has built here with this team. It's awesome. I think it's been a long time coming, and they deserve it. As far as location, I guess Marlins Park is cool. I feel like there would have been enough Panthers fans, and I hate to say it, there would have been enough Ranger fans that either live here or come down here to put it at a place like Hard Rock Stadium, which has way more seating capacity. I think they still would have found a way to fill it up if it were there. But Marlins Park is cool. I'm sorry, Lone Depot Park is cool.
Lone Depot Park, lowercase L, lowercase P for some reason. It's I wonder why. My only guess would be that they have the roof just in case things go wrong, in case you get one of those random 85-degree days that Miami gets in December or January.
Or rain.
Or rain. It could always rain.
Yeah.
It feels like every time the Super Bowl is down here, it rains. But of course, that would be a month and a half later. I will say, if it's anything like how it's been the past week, it would be perfect.
It would be great.
It's been in the high 50s, low 60s every night, not a cloud in the sky, no humidity. So I'm sure the Marlins and the Panthers and the NHL will be really glued to their weather app on their phones, making sure that it feels exactly like how it does right now.
Yeah, Alex, you mentioned this in the GC not that long ago. People online are going, "Oh man, how are they going to have the ice ready? If it's like 80 degrees and humid, how is the ice going to be there?" They have the cold comes from underneath the ice in the form of the tubes that provide water, yada yada yada, a bunch of technical things which I'm obviously not super well familiar with, but it comes from the bottom, basically.
So basically, there's aluminum trays and pipes that go through the trays underneath the ice, and inside of those pipes is ultra-cooled water that runs at below freezing level because of certain chemicals that are in that water. So they're able to run below freezing level through the pipes, and those pipes now are below freezing, and those pipes are touching the ice from the bottom. The ice is on top of those pipes, and so now the ice is able to remain frozen. Now, of course, the caveat is that it still needs to be reasonably chilly. Like if it's in the 80s, it's not going to be a good time. But if it's somewhere in the 60s or maybe even the low 70s, it'll be fine. Yeah. Also, as long as it's not too humid. But again, January in South Florida usually means not a lot of humidity. And then, of course, if all else fails, they'll close the roof.
Well, and it'll be a good test to see how cold the AC at Lone Depot Park can really get. We don't know, but we shall see there. I would have loved if they played this game at Pitbull Stadium. Imagine a Pitbull intermission show. You know, that would have been awesome over here at FIU.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into watching tonight's episode of the Pause Up Podcast. Episode 79 featuring myself, Kevin Barral, and the quarterback of FIU football, Keywan Jenkins. Tonight at 8 o'clock at Pause Up Podcast, X, Insta, and YouTube. Go watch it. Sorry. I just had to plug that real quick. I was wondering when I could. That I took my shot. No, you did what you had to do. Yeah. I'm sure you and Kevin did a great job. I don't know who I haven't met Kevin yet, but I'm looking forward to doing it soon. I've heard he's a chill guy. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, with Marlins season coming up too, you know, a lot of questions can be answered. I'm sure the Marlins themselves will be pumped at the fact that, you know, their joint will be used as the home of the Winter Classic here. So yeah, the Marlins might need to spend some money to upgrade that air conditioning if they have to. And speaking of upgrading money towards your stadium, that's another quick thing we can talk about, as it was recently announced that the Amerant Bank Arena is getting some new upgrades coming soon. The most prominent thing being a new state-of-the-art scoreboard that's going to be installed ahead of of next season. Here we go. What exactly they have to say? It'll bring you closer to the action and elevate the in-arena experience. They're also adding a new multi-use hospitality zone on the upper levels, like the 300 level, offering a premium social space to connect with fans. Demolition and construction will begin this offseason with completion ahead of the 2026 season. So that's 2 years away. An improved retail experience, which I'm assuming is maybe I don't know, doing something with Pantherland to make the lines move a little faster, and then upgraded food and beverage programming, which I'm not going to lie, I already thought that was pretty good. I mean, the variety that joint has as far as food and drinks is really good. But by the way, I guess Kevin drove by it today. They already have construction cranes and equipment already on site at Sunrise working on the Amerant Bank Arena. So this is happening, and it's happening soon. It's funny, Alex. The Heat just brought in a new scoreboard to the Kaseya Center, and now Florida is going to be doing the same. I hope, just because I haven't really seen one of these in person, they do what a lot of these new arenas are doing. They have that ring scoreboard that goes around the entire arena. I know the Intuit Dome has that, the new home of the Clippers. So obviously SoFi has it, but it obviously had to be a more downscale because that's a football stadium. A lot of arenas have that. I think it looks really cool, and I'm wondering if that's the direction they'll go with.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing because I'm wondering how you can improve upon the scoreboard they already have. They used to have, remember the old-timey scoreboards where there was like 8 panels on it, and every other panel was the video board with the scoreboard, and then every other panel was a fixed advertisement.
Yeah,
And
like
so
the
obviously-
BB&T Center days. Oh, man. Even
and
before that.
And it was all just bulbs. Like it wasn't anything in 4K or HD. It was just all bulbs that were put together to make the numbers. You know what I mean?
Scoreboard they have isn't even that old. It's like it's
That's
even
what I'm
a decade
saying.
old.
Like
It's
it was easy to improve upon the old scoreboard that they had because it was very much an old-timey 1990s scoreboard. The one they have now is perfect. It's big.
I don't hate it.
Clear. It's got all the information you need on it. So I don't know. And the one that they fixed or that they replaced at the Kaseya Center, that scoreboard was there, I think, since it opened.
Yeah.
So of course that can be improved upon and made larger. So I don't know.
From what I saw, they did. The new scoreboard does look really, really good.
Of course, because the old one was really old. Yeah. But this one is relatively new. I think it's like 10 or 11 years old. So I don't know how you can improve upon it or why you would want to improve on it, but I'm excited to see. They must have something cool in mind.
You mentioned it. How do you improve upon it? It's good the way it is. I mean, maybe they, like I said, they want to do something crazy, adopt a ring scoreboard or do something that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just want to do something simple. And like, if the video boards aren't already 4K display, they'll make them 4K display or maybe even 8K display, do something along those lines. But yeah, I liked it. By the way, the new hospitality zone, we're just going to have to wait and see what that really means. Like I said, if they improve, because I've been to Pantherland a few times, you know, I had to spend some dinero on the come on, focus. The championship pin among a bunch of other merch. I had to go there. The lines to actually buy the stuff you want, they can get rough. So if they want to expand Pantherland, obviously add new merch because they want you to buy it, but also expand the checkout areas, and obviously maybe even add more team stores across the arena with similar stuff in like the 200 and 300 levels. That would be nice. Just it'd be nice.
The only thing that I'm worried about, and again, I don't know what the hospitality space entails, but if it's anything like what I see at certain ballparks around the country, I'm a little nervous because sometimes they make these things like too fun to where people aren't in their seats and you look at the crowd and it's like half empty. I hope that's not the case. I'm old school. I like amenities, but I want the seating bowl to just be seats. I don't want there to be bars and standing room. And
I had that feeling with what's that thing in the 100 level? I think it's the Jameson, the crossbar, that little area over there. It's cool. Yeah, it has a lot of cool decorations, but it has tables and seats with a bunch of TVs. Yeah, a lot of TVs there. You could literally spend a whole game there. Just watch the game there, maybe watch some other stuff, and obviously you have a bar right there.
Exactly. You know what else they could add?
What?
They could add back the Panther head that they used to skate out of.
Facts.
That's all anyone wants. Keep your scoreboard, keep your hospitality suite. People want the Panther head.
Yes.
Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. That's when they had obviously the older uniforms, and when they went to the rebrand that they use now, that got canned. which is
Yeah, and I don't know why. They should add it back.
Yeah.
If anyone is listening to this who has the power to do it,
Yeah.
bring back the Panther head.
They probably still have it too. I mean, we can't really see it, but when we're credentialed and we're in the underneath the arena, sometimes you get a glimpse at the storage areas. I guarantee you, it's probably there somewhere.
Well, for several years after they got rid of it, it was still hanging from the rafters.
Yes, Panther head is legit. I agree, Gus.
The Panther head is legit.
By the way, you bring up something there. Winter Classic means retro uniform, like retro new uniforms. Oh, I can't wait to see what Florida does.
The people want the hockey stick palm tree on the shoulder, and they want the leaping panther breaking the hockey stick on the chest.
Yeah. And then after that, you can customize however you want. If you want to do some ultra traditional stripes, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But yeah, we need to see that logo back, as it was. I'll always like the logo we have now, because we won a championship with it. But that throwback logo is definitely peak. Last thing I want to bring up before we can close up shop here, since it's the halfway point of the season, the NHL dropped what the playoffs would look like if they started today. This is what it looks like right now. Over the East, you have the Maple Leafs taking on the Lightning in the first round. You have Florida taking on Boston. That's funny. Washington taking on Columbus. That's interesting. Columbus makes it in. And then you have the New Jersey taking on Carolina. That would be a scary first-round matchup right there. Over in the West, Winnipeg and Colorado, Minnesota and Dallas. You have Vegas, who is looking really good, taking on Vancouver. And then you have Edmonton taking on the LA Kings. I wouldn't mind playing Boston right now in the first round, considering what's going on with Boston. I'm shocked they're even still around here, to be quite frank with you, that they've snuck in here. But I don't hate the way this playoffs look. Yeah.
Well, so real quick, I'll let this next thing serve as a quick preview of the Boston matchup that's coming up tomorrow, Saturday afternoon. It's a 1:00 puck drop, by the way. The Boston's lost their last 6. As you guys know, Jim Montgomery was fired earlier in the season.
Yeah.
They've got a new head coach. They've lost their last 6. They've been outscored 24-11 in those 6 games. And actually, I'm sorry to derail this, Jake, because there was something that I wanted to bring up because I thought it was hilarious.
Okay.
So a reporter from WEEI in Boston said that David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand, that David Pastrnak had become an issue in the locker room, and that he had requested that he gets moved off of the line that he was on with Brad Marchand because they were fighting. We don't know whether or not this is actually true, but that's what it was reported. Brad Marchand this morning went off about this reporter. He was talking to the media during his media availability, and I actually have the quote right here from Brad Marchand speaking about the reporter that dropped this piece of news. The fact this guy has a platform and is just making this up is embarrassing. There's zero truth to anything he said. This is how you lose a job very quickly. The fact that he's going to have a job after this is insane. He then went on to say, this guy can pound sand and go back to the closet where he came from, where no one knew who he was. Pound sand. I love that.
Wow. You can't really pound sand in Boston. They don't have any beaches like that they have down here.
No, but he's got to go find some sand and pound it, apparently.
You can find it here when Florida would take on Boston in the first round if it happens, like how the NHL says it right now. Who scares you the most in the NHL, Alex? I mean, Vegas is doing crazy things right now. Connor McDavid hasn't really done a whole lot, but Edmonton keeps winning, which is scary. And then in the East, you obviously have Toronto, who's been preparing that championship parade since the start of the season began. There's a lot of great teams. And now everyone knows that, like, the Panthers don't have any surprise attacks anymore. Everyone knows what they're going to get with the Panthers when the playoffs come.
It's really just the teams that have the pedigree. Like, the Lightning will always scare me a little bit, even though I know the Panthers are better.
Mm-hmm.
The Bruins don't scare me at all anymore. I know they don't scare me at all anymore. Edmonton, of course, just because even though they haven't won a championship, they're still here. Like they've still done a lot of winning, just short of winning the actual championship. Vegas scares me. And when I say scares me, like we're grading this on a curve, right?
Yeah.
No team really scares me. The only team that scares me is the Panthers not performing to the level that I know that they can. As long as they perform to the level that they can, I think they're better than every other team. But of course, when grading on a curve, there are teams like the Golden Knights, the Oilers, that I think could turn on the Jets in the playoffs with the pedigree that they have.
This is absolutely unrelated. Carson Beck has committed to Miami. That is crazy.
Yeah, that's old news. That was like 3 hours ago.
Yeah, 3. I just opened up ESPN for the first time and I checked that. By the way, shout out Nashville for being a very disappointing squad. After they got into the playoffs last year, you bring in Stammer, you bring in Marchessault, and they're
that really sucks to see.
Not even close to the playoffs.
Yeah, sucks to see. I really didn't like that. They're one of the Western Conference teams that I wish good things upon.
Them in Anaheim, because I love their new sweaters. They look so good. Those new sweaters. And it's Anaheim. It's a cool city. Seattle, too. I want them to break out because, they're a new team. And but they're not there yet.
Sorry to derail you. So going back to what you were talking about before I did that, the Metro Division, like that's a whole lot of new-looking teams. At least
Washington,
New Jersey, Carolina, Columbus, and the Penguins are the top 5 there right now. They're not all in the playoff picture because the Bruins out of the Atlantic have the first wild card, and then the Blue Jackets and Penguins are tied for the second wild card. So that would be fun if the Panthers make it to the Eastern Conference Finals again. I think a series against any of those teams, it would be nice to see some new jackets in the building, some new sweaters in the building for a series like that. Because I know it's champagne problems, and I almost feel gross saying this just because I would have killed to be in this position a few years ago. It's getting a little boring with all these matchups against the same teams for like the first couple of rounds. Like I don't want to play Boston again. We're good. We've dealt with Boston already. Bring us someone else.
Mm-hmm. It won't be the Rangers, by the way.
No, it won't. It won't be the Rangers.
Some other things. Sid, the middle-aged man, looking like Sid the Kid. It's good to see. And then Ovi. I think Ovi's going to break that record, Alex. That the Gretzky record. I think that's going to get smashed by Ovi by the time this season's done.
I think he will.
Yeah. Alrighty then. I guess we'll wrap up the show there. That was a fun episode back to back to basics for us here. Season 2, episode 2 of Welcome to the Podcats. I almost said Puckett. I stopped myself. Welcome to the Podcats. And we'll be back soon, probably. We'll definitely try to get another episode in, maybe preview the Four Nations face-off, because like I said, Alex, that's going to be a lot of fun. I think this is going to be great. I think they're playing in Montreal and Boston. Those are the 2 cities that they'll be in. But a lot of Panthers we can be happy about. They're going to be in, like, I think there's at least one on every single nation that's taking part in this thing. There's at least one Panther sticking their head there. So that's awesome. Alrighty, so great show for Alex and myself. We're saying thank you. We'll be back with more episodes in the future with the new name. Welcome to the Podcats. That's new, but one thing that won't change is how we close up shop. Let's go home, baby.